Okay, so tonight's session's about MAVROS, which is an acronym, funny enough, based on my name. And it's about strategic thinking. And the underlying essence of it is never fear making a decision on anything again. So we're going to talk about the importance of strategy, why we must have plans, the importance of mindset. I want to talk to you about we're all salespeople, but we're all buyers too. In your whole daily events, your whole life, you are either in one of two modes. You are either selling or you're buying. If you've got an idea, a thought, a concept, a product, a service, whatever, a thesis, a presentation, you're trying to sell your idea or product or service. If you're listening to somebody, if you're taking in a TV show, if you're taking in a lecture, this one now, if you're just out and experiencing life, you're buying into whatever it is that you're accepting. So I have a very broad definition of selling and buying, and you'll see how it helps down the track. And then, of course, we'll talk about MAVROS itself. So last night I talked to you about these various products that I launched. I want to actually just look at WD-40 for a second, and I want to look at Barilla for a second. When I launched WD-40, they had a 300-gram can, and I was launching it into the grocery trade. And we didn't want to cannibalize the hardware market. We wanted to create new business without eating into existing business. Now, the grocery trade works on smaller margins, so markup, than the others do. So what we did is we created a 400-gram can. And WD-40 is a very masculine product. It's, you know, blokes use it in the garage and they use it on cars. And this is going back 30-something years. So you've got to remember, men were men and women were women, and all that sort of nonsense was rife. Now we're starting to understand we're actually human beings. So to get it into the grocery trade back then, very few men did the grocery shopping. It's not like today. I used to do the grocery shopping because I used to do market research at the same time as I did the grocery shopping. But it was not unusual for me to do grocery shopping at the local supermarket, the Woolworths or the Coles. And you would be lucky if I would see 10 or 15 guys in the shop. They were mostly women. So what I had WD-40 do, I got them to create a 75-gram can. And that went into the haberdashery section, and it had a whole lot of stories connected to it as to why women would want WD-40. And then I had a sign that said, we have a 400-gram can over in the hardware department. So again, it's about strategy. With Barilla, if you're not Italian and you're not Greek, Christine and I will tell you, you really don't know how to make pastas. You certainly don't know how to make spaghetti bowls, because it's either between the Greeks or the Italians. We probably created it because Greeks create everything, don't they, Christine? So when we were launching Barilla, and I got that into the grocery trade, I hired a team of demonstrators, and I bought some tables, and I bought some cooking pots. They had to be middle-aged, either Greek or Italian women. I wanted them around that 45, 50 mark because I wanted people to see Mama cooking the pasta and spaghetti. So yes, I was racist. It could not be an Anglo-Saxon. You had to have a Greek or Italian accent. And what we did is when we had the Barilla in the shops, in Woolworths or Coles or Franklin's or at the supermarkets and the shopping centres, we set up tables and we had these women cooking spaghetti bolognese and giving spaghetti bolognese to people as they're walking in. They're getting these little plates, and we sold it like there was no tomorrow. Again, strategy, okay? Talked about this last night. I've been doing all sorts of things ever since the age of 11, and I've just been blessed with a wonderful, wonderful career that's taken me through all sorts of areas. I mentioned to you last night, and those that have known me before last night, you know the story. I was consulting to a circus at one stage, and at the very same time, I was selling chocolate-coated peanuts and almonds. So I have actually, literally sold from the peanut to the elephant. I will remind you about this one because it's very, very important to me. There are two ways of listening. The first way is to listen, to learn, to gain understanding, to understand where the other person's coming from, just to get their perspective sometimes. And the second way of listening is to just answer or to argue. And what I mean by that, and I'll reiterate that for those of you who've heard this from me before, when you ask somebody a question or when somebody is talking to you, if you're not really listening to what they say, but you're just processing and saying, okay, well, when he finishes, I'm about to say this or I'm going to say that, you're not actually listening to them. You're not gaining that understanding. What you're doing is you're listening so that you can argue. You're listening so that you can answer. Sometimes people say something and you drift off and you start to say, oh, I don't agree with that. Oh, I don't know about that. Now you're off thinking about that and you're not actually listening to where it's coming from. So for me, I try to hear what you say, but I genuinely try to listen to where it's coming from. Because if I understand where you're coming from, I've got a better chance of understanding where you want to head to, and then I can respond to you accordingly. And sometimes we will be on totally different sides of the discussion or the dispute or whatever it is. But if you don't have an understanding of where the other person is, you haven't got a chance of understanding. You haven't got a chance of learning. So people that just listen to answer or argue, they just don't learn. You just don't learn. So let's talk about mindset. This fella here took us to the moon. He said, I see a man landing on the moon by the end of the decade. And a whole lot of people did a whole lot of work to get man to land on the moon. Malalia, what an extraordinary young woman that lady is. She got a whole lot of people to start thinking about changing their ways and changing their thought patterns. Jacinda Ardern, Benazir Bhutto, both of them. They had an idea, they had a vision, they had a thought of where they could go. And of course, interesting, Sarab, that we've got that podcast coming up next week because he is one of the people that is one of the people I look up to, Mahatma Gandhi. So all these people represent to me examples of your hands can only create what your mind can see. If you can't conceptualize, if you can't see it and believe it, there's no way on earth you can create it. And you know, something I didn't share with the people last night, but I'll share with all of you tonight. You have never, ever, ever heard an original song unless you wrote it. You have never, ever, ever seen an original picture or painting unless you created it. And I'll tell you why. First, you have it in your mind. Then you speak it. First, you have it in your mind. Then you draw it. So if I said to you all now, I'd like you to draw a yellow bird, what you're seeing in your mind is a picture of a yellow bird. So your mind has to see it before you can draw it. So here we are thinking that we've heard all of these original songs from Lennon, Cat Stevens, whoever it is. they're actually the first copy of the original, because the original was in their mind. Just like the man on the moon. John F. Kennedy saw that, and then he got other people to see that, and then they created a rocket. Then they created whatever it was that they had to create. Unless your hands and feet have something to copy, which comes from your mind, they're not going to do anything. If you want to get somewhere, you have to move your mind before you can move your hands, before you can move your feet. This one's worth talking about. This is from a Clint Eastwood Dirty Harry movie. And he says in that, a man's got to know his limitations, which is a very true statement. You've got to know your limitations. But to me, knowing your limitations is a negative take. My saying is, the exciting thing is, when you really know them, you then actually learn what your true potential is. And that's what you should go for. Do you honestly think Stephen Hawkins didn't know what his limitations were? Do you honestly think that Nelson Mandela, when he was locked up for so many years, didn't know what his limitations were? They knew their limitations, but they also knew what they could do. Once you know how far you can go and you can't go any further, you then know how far you can go. That's what you've got to aim for. Sarab and I are working on a project at the moment. We're looking to start that with a business networking group in Western Sydney. I have already told him I'm aiming to go global with it. My limitation is I can't personally do it, but I've got a network that can help me. If you see where you can go for it. None of us realise our full potential, because we usually pass away before we get to do everything. Even somebody like Hawkins, even somebody like Mandela, they give us so much that there was so much more to give. So positive versus negative mindset. They focused on what they could do and what they could achieve. Do you know that Hawkins actually did more creative and was more successful the worse his body got? As his body started to fight against him more and more, some of his greatest work came out. So he worked on what he could do. And Mandela. There's a thing about Mandela, and they talk about him being in prison. And he said, they had my body. I would not give them my mind or my soul. So his limitation was so many walls and so many feet that he could move backwards and forwards. But it didn't stop him thinking. It didn't stop him using his brain. And that's what he worked with. And of course, we all know he came out of jail and he changed a nation's thinking and made a big difference to a lot of people around the world. So don't be too worried about your limitations, because they're also your potential. And if you're not sure about what your true potential is, get somebody that's prepared to tell you. So now I want to talk about conceptual thinking. So whether you're in communication, whether you're in negotiation, whether you're selling, or whether you're buying, you are always in the selling mode. If you can't sell, you can't communicate. If you can't sell, you can't negotiate. And if you can't sell, you certainly can't sell. And if you know how to do it strategically, if you know how to sell strategically and make decisions strategically, you're also a very good buyer. Now, that's a bit confusing, but it'll all come together a bit further on. My thoughts are this. If I'm talking and you're accepting what I'm saying, I'm doing the selling, you're doing the buying. If you want to argue with me and put forward your point of view, you're now selling, and I'm deciding whether I'm going to buy what you're selling. A TV reporter a few months back, Carl Stefanovic, actually, was giving Scott Morrison a whole heap of misery about the way he was handling the fires and all of that. And Scott Morrison started rattling on about a whole lot of stuff. And he was saying blah, 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 blah. And Carl Stefanovic just turned around. He said, Prime Minister, we're not buying what you're selling. So again, there's an example. We're not accepting what you're telling us, is we're not buying into that story. If I do accept what you're telling me, then I'm buying into your story. So we're all salespeople, whether it's a product, a service, a concept, a thought, an idea. We're trying to get a job, you're selling. We're trying to get people to attend something, you're selling. We decide that we're going to attend a mentor session, we've bought into that idea. You take some of my ideas from last night. Thank you for the compliments from those of you that passed them on to me, and for my supporters from years gone. If you're saying that you like what I said and you're trying to implement, then you bought into what I've been teaching. So it is not just about, I want a packet of lollies, please. I give you $1, you give me the lollies, and away we go. And probably today you wouldn't get terribly much for $1. Most importantly, you have to be able to sell you. Now, last night I was talking about if you can't sell you, people won't buy your product or your service. But if they won't buy you, you also won't be able to sell them your idea, your concept, your position. And I'll let you in on a secret. I'm 65 years of age. I developed MAVROS back in around about when I was 24. And since I was 24, I have never bought anything worth more than $500. I'll say that again. Since I was 24, I have never bought anything that was worth more than $500. I've owned cars that are worth a lot more than $500. I've had a few houses that are worth a lot more than $500. I have never bought one of those things since the age of 24. Since the age of 24, I have gone out to sell a concept to a salesman that they will give me their product, their service for this sort of money, my terms. So I've actually reversed the whole thing. So I don't buy from a salesman, I actually sell my position to them. Now, if I can't sell me, I couldn't be selling to them. So you've got business plans and marketing plans and sales plans, and they're not all the same. They're all part of a family. They're all part of business, but they all have a function to play. The business plan is about what do we want to start with? What do we want it to look like as a business? What do we want it to achieve? What do we want it to stand for? What is the exit strategy? And just like I said last night, I have a business plan for George Mavros. I have an intention of what I want to stand for. I want people to be able to say, he was this bloke that did this. He was this guy that meant that. I looked up to him on this basis. So I have a business plan that the day I die, there will always be people that don't like you. I promise you, there will always be people that don't like you. My plan for when I die, there's a fair few more that like me that didn't. And if I've done more good than I've done bad on this earth, that's okay by me. It is not about having the most money. It is not about having the bright, shiny new car or whatever. Not for me. That's not saying that's wrong, but that's not my end strategy. My end strategy is to have legacies. to be able to say, I helped people, I did this. It's not about being the most successful whatever. At the age of 32, so that's 33 years ago, I was earning $75,000 a year, and I was on a $15,000 bonus, and I owned a percentage of Artline marking pens in Australia. If you do the maths, what that would be today in a salary, I currently draw from my company $70,000 a year. 30 years later, and I'm on the same sort of pay. But I am far richer today than I ever was then, because I'm the richest in life and what it's all about. So that's me, that's my plan. Doesn't mean it has to be yours, but I have a very definite idea what my business plan is. The marketing plan is the W's. What are we going to do? Which way are we going to do it? Why, where, who, when? It's the micro of the business plan. Now, if I want a whole heap of people to think I'm a good fellow, I then have to think about how I'm implementing this marketing plan. Because if I behave in a manner that is disrespectful, if I behave in a manner that's all about money and not about people, then my marketing plan is not congruent with my business plan for me. But that's the same with the business. ETSI Consulting is not about, it's not about having 55,000 staff and being the biggest and the best and all that sort of stuff. What it's about is exactly what I do with it now. I help people that need my help. I give corporate level training to people that can't afford corporate level prices. I do a lot of charity work because that's what's in it for me. And funny enough, all of those things have a heap of people saying, he's a nice guy. There's still a few that don't like me. That's okay. But so you can see my marketing plan is congruent with where I want to be in my business plan. And in your business, if you don't know where your business is going and you don't know who you want to attract, then how can you possibly have a marketing plan for you? It's the micro of the business plan and it's the macro of your sales plan. The sales plan is the marketing, is the micro of the marketing plan. So this is where we actually get in and do the job. We've done all the planning. Right, now somebody's got to actually implement. It's the revenue earning implementation of business. It is not profit making. You sell something and you get paid money. That is revenue. If the thing breaks and you have to replace it free of charge, you now have lost some of your profit. If the staff didn't get the thing right and it comes back and you have to send it back out again, but you don't get any more money, you're eating into profit. If somebody doesn't pay you, you don't make any profit. You actually make a loss, a significant loss. Sales is about revenue. What happens in how you handle the sale and how you look after your customers or clients, that's where you start to make profit. You improve your efficiency, you improve your production, you improve your deliveries, you improve your range, you increase your average sales value. Now you're starting to talk about the profit. If you're making 100% profit, but you're not making any sales, you're not making anything. You've only got potential. Sales brings in revenue. Now we've got to convert it. In all of these plans, if you have a plan and you know where you're headed, then you've got a chance of going in the right direction. If you don't have a plan that you can share with everybody around you, so if you're, those of you that are in a business with staff, if you've got a plan but you're sharing it with the staff or with your business partner, how do they know what's happening? Now in this, I have the example and I'm saying, will we plan it or will we roll the dice? This is a watch. if I just want to take a chance, I'll tell everybody that we're going to be here until about let's say 3:30. Now, is that 3:30 for Mahima that's in India? Is it 3:30 for somebody that's overseas in another country, or is it 3:30 here? Well, it can't be 3:30 here because we've already gone past 3:30. But if I say to everybody, here's my watch, according to me, it's 10 to 7, and in 1 hour's time, we're going to do something, every one of you know exactly when that is. Whatever the time is where you are, even if your watch is out, if this watch is different to this watch, it doesn't matter. You know exactly when I want you to do something, 1 hour from now. Okay? If you don't have plans in business, it's just rolling the dice, and it could come up any number between 1 and 6. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to have a short break, and I'm going to open up, and we're just going to have a bit of a chit chat, and then we're going to go back into it. If I go there. Okay, so mic's on, please. And if you can, I prefer videos on. And I see Venkata has joined us. Okay, so anybody got a question? Put your hand up. You tricked me then, Richie. I thought you were putting your hand up. That was very good.
Take my earphones out.
Okay. Jacob.
Hey mate, how are you?
I'm good. Do you have a question for me?
No, I'm just turning my camera on, mate, so I can be part of this.
If you did have a question for me, Jacob, what do you think it would be?
I guess, like, how do you believe in yourself? How do you stop yourself from feeling like an imposter?
Now, just before I answer that, I've just taught you all a technique. It comes from NLP, NeuroLinguistic Programming. It's about how we talk to our brain. I said to Jacob, did you have a question? He said no. As soon as he said no, his brain went, whew, that's good, we can relax. But I then said to Jacob, if you did have a question, what would it be? His brain went, oh, geez, now I've got to think. What would be a question? If ever you get stumped, if ever you're not sure what to do, if you don't know what the next step is, and you say to yourself, well, I don't know, you have automatically said to your brain, check out. As soon as that happens to you, go back to, if I did know, what would I do? What would I say? What would it be? And you'll be amazed how many times you have the answer to something that you didn't have an answer to. Now, coming back to your question, Jacob. Imposter syndrome is not an unusual thing, especially in younger people, and especially in younger people that are succeeding quickly, because it's, oh my God, I'm 23 years of age, and most 23-year-olds wouldn't be here, and I'm probably not as good as what I think I am, and all that. That is not an uncommon thing, and imposter syndrome goes right through your life for many a person. And in most people, there will always be something that they feel a little bit of that. Confidence and arrogance are interesting partners. If one is up, the other just follows. Right? So if you're confident, and you're very confident, there will be a touch of arrogance. It's called arrogance of success. A number of surveys that have been done on me, each time they've been done was to prove that I shouldn't get a job, and each time it proved that I should. God bless them, because I've never paid for one of the damn things. When I was younger, it was 70% of people who met me for the first time wanted to do business. 30% of people that met me for the first time didn't necessarily not want to do business with me, but they thought I was a bit arrogant, and they thought I was blunt, and they thought I was rude, right? The next time it was done was about 10 years later, and it came back 75-25. And the next time it was done was another big event in my life, and it came back as 80-20. The interesting thing was, I didn't ask the first 2 times, but I did the third time. The examples that people gave as to why they would do business with me versus why they wouldn't do business with me. One lot was saying, he does this, 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 and this, and he's just so confident. And the other parties, the 20%, said he does this, 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 and this. He's just so arrogant. So it's an arrogance of success. If I take a soccer field, I've been playing since I was under 9. I guarantee you I do not have the arrogance of success when I'm playing against 30-year-olds. I actually feel like I shouldn't be here, which is not quite true because I am fairly confident. But I know I'm not very good at soccer compared to a 30-year-old. Right? Do you think Maradona would be intimidated by you, me, or anybody else if he took the field at 50 or 60 or Pele? No, because they know that they can take on most people. Okay, look at Ronaldo. Ronaldo comes up, there's 3 players. Oh, this will be fun. I take the ball up and I think, my God, there's one of them. I'm going to get cramped. Blam. Okay, so imposter syndrome is just it's a matter of you understanding what is that about? Why am I feeling that way? Do I have the right to be here? Well, my friend, if you're there, you've probably got the right to be there. Okay.
Thank you. Yeah.
So, and if you're not sure, find yourself a coach or a mentor, because I can tell you, many a person that I've helped over the years, I knew they weren't an imposter. It just took them a while to find out. Okay.
Thank you, mate.
My lovely wife on LinkedIn today paid me credit for that, because she didn't know how good she was. Took me a while. She's now moving to a job which is going to respect her a lot more than the last people did. Not that they were very sad that she was going, but she wasn't prepared to go for something else because she wasn't sure that she could. And my very good friend Jan helped her get over a lot of that, helped her rewrite her resume. She put her resume out, and within 20 minutes, somebody came back to her. Within 4 days, she got a new job. She's not an imposter. She just didn't have enough confidence. Okay. Any other questions?
Yeah.
Yes, Richie, how's your earphones?
So I can see that you're talking about having a strategic plan, especially when you're trying to sell yourself. Now, obviously, plans, going through business and having a changing environment around you, whether or not it be the landscape or even just the market, plans change. So how detailed would you expect your plan to be, especially when you know that, in 6 months' time, that plan can change because, whatever, COVID comes around, or something happens within your business with a supplier. So, things, what's your take on that? What's your, should plans be detailed? Should there be, a few pages? And, how regularly should you be planning? Or should it be a 6 month cycle, 3 months, or 2 years?
So think of it this way. My big plan for me, or whatever I'm doing, let's assume my end play, we're going to call that North. Sarab and I have launched this podcast together, and he's done a heck of a lot of great work on it. My job is to keep him heading north. That's all. I just got to make sure he keeps heading north, because that's the end play. Okay. Now, sometimes, and any of you that have been sailing or watched sailing, you go off this way and then you go off that way. It's called tack. So you have to take a different tack. Okay. But if you don't know, Richie, if you don't have any idea where north is, how the hell do you know when you're going south? So your plan is north. And you look at it and you sort of think, well, I'm running a little bit northeast. I'll bring it back in line. Well, I'm running a bit northwest. I'll bring it back in line. Well, this looks a bit wrong. I've got to do something. So when something like COVID comes, it might push you slightly towards east. You might be more in east than you are north. So you then make a decision. Can I continue on this tack for a while? Do I have to take that tack for a while? Or can I just steer the thing back around? Without a plan, you are nothing more than a cork in the ocean. Tide comes in, you're going in. Tide goes out, you're going out. Wind blows north, you're going north. Wind blows south, you're going south. But with a plan, you've got an engine, you've got a rudder, you've got a set of sails, you've got a compass, and you can tell when you're running off course. And just like in sailing, sometimes you've got to say, I'm actually not going to continue on my trip. I'm going to pull in and take safe harbour. That's what a lot of businesses have done in these last few months. A lot of businesses, whoa, hang on, we've just got to settle things down a bit. So yes, plans have to change. My ultimate plan for me has always been on that same basis, because that's heart, spirit and soul. But my business plan to get to there has done all sorts of things.
And sometimes other opportunities turn up and happen, and they can be the best things for you. You wouldn't actually be where you are if, you know, that sort of, say, COVID has happened. So I think that's another thing that, you know, you look for other opportunities when you're adrift like that, you know, and off course. And that sometimes strengthens you and reinforces that what you're good at, and you can do it. So I think that's also another thing that that happens to you when you're sort of going east, as George says.
And Richie, I've always intended to have my books, and I've been writing my books for some time now, and I've always intended to have an online presence. And a lot of the stuff that I've written is aimed at, in my mind, was aimed at the American market. I always had this thing that I used to say, just give me a product that I sell $100,000 worth in Sydney, and I'm allowed to take it to America. America, for all of you that don't know, is 12.5 times the Australian market. Yeah, so if I sell 1,000 in Australia, that's 12,500 in America. Yeah. If I can sell 1 million in Australia, it's 12. So my attitude was always about give me the American market, right? Since I started doing mentoring, I've had a lot of international students, and they happen to come from India, and they happen to come from China a lot of the times. When Sarab spoke to me about doing a podcast, and he happens to come from India, I said to him, yes, I'm interested in doing that. And I made no bones about it. I said, because I'd love to help you succeed in this, but also through my connection with you, maybe we can take this more into India, which will then open up the Indian market for me. Because there's a lot more people that speak English in India than there are in Australia and probably America. So my plan hasn't changed. It's just refocused. Since Mahima and I have started to do business together, and I'm trying to help her, and we're forming a little company together, I used to bring product in from China. Now I'm just taking that same strategy, which I'm teaching Mahima, and we're going to be looking at bringing stuff in from India. But my plan, it didn't change a lot. It's just that, oh, I can do that as well. Okay. But if I didn't know where north is, I can tell you, I've seen plenty of people heading south and they have no idea where they are. And what's even worse, they're in the middle of the compass and they're just spinning around. They have no clue. They just have no clue. So you've got to have a plan, but you've got to review it and you've got to be realistic. All right, I'll take one more question and then we'll get back into it. Going.
Yeah, I've got a question.
Good man.
How do I find a mentor, mate?
You need to find somebody that will resonate with you. You need to be able to find somebody that's in a situation that they can be of service to you. And you need to find somebody that's probably at least 10 or 15 years older than you in business. Now, the reason I say that is any of you that have children or any of you that have younger brothers and sisters or nephews or nieces. If you're having trouble with a 4-year-old, you don't go and ask your friend who's not even married. You go and ask your parents. And your parents used to ask their grandparents, your grandparents. You don't have a business coach or a life coach or a mentor that is the same age as you, because they may be better than you pound for pound at your age, but they certainly don't have the experience of somebody that's been around the block a few times. I have grey hair on my chin, on my head, and areas we won't even talk about. And every one of those grey hairs comes with experience. So you find somebody that's above or older than you. I've been blessed all my life. I've always had mentors, right? I've always found people that are older than me. My mum was a great mentor for me. Jeff Penny, who was Mr. Artline, was 30 years older than me. I had 2 sales guys that were my mentors, right? And I still have people that are older than me that I can go to. The problem that you do have as you get to 65, it's hard to find somebody that's still in business and 15 years older than you. And I don't know what's going to happen, because my plan is, I believe medicine's going to work. And I keep telling my wife that I'm going to be here at 120. So I've just got to find a 135-year-old to mentor me. That'll be interesting. If you want to talk more about mentors, you can talk to me after this. Okay.
Thank you, mate.
All right.
Yeah, for answering that.
Let's get back into it.
So I have a question.
Oh, Mahima, go for it.
Yeah. So being a student or just, being new in any industry, that you have to give your full and you have to provide like 100%, in fact, more than 100% sometimes. So when is the right time when you ask for somebody's help? Like, when is the right time when okay, I did all I could have, I put all of my efforts and I did everything. Now is the time that I should actually ask for help or call for help.
Are you talking about your boss or your superior in the business?
Oh, anyone, like, yeah, in fact, superior,
Okay.
of course,
If you're working in a company and somebody above you is going to get angry or not be prepared to help you when you ask for help, change the company. Anybody that's not prepared to help people that don't know as much about it as they do, especially when they're much older than that person should not be in a position of management. They are a bad manager. The only way I can tell so many people here the right way of doing so many things is because by age 65, by geez, I've made a lot of mistakes and I've learned from them. And I've had a lot of people help me. If any of you have somebody that you're afraid to ask a question because it's going to damage your situation with them, change the company and do it quick. Okay?
Sure.
And I hope, Mahima, that's not directed at anything that you're worried to ask me about.
No.
Okay, let's get into it.
I think Lavneesh have a question. He is with.
Gonna have to hold the question. We'll get through this and I'll come back to the questions.
Sure.
Okay. So MAVROS is an acronym, and comes from my name, and it's the M is for moment, the A is for annoy, the V is for value, the R is for rate, the O is for other considerations, and the S is for strategy. Moment is just a word. It's to get you to a point. What's brought me to this moment? What is the current situation? What is the existing anything at the moment? If I'm buying a new house, how did I get here? What brought me to this house? Why did I buy this car? What is the current job that I have? What is the current course that I have? What is the current anything that I have? What is the existing? So it's just to get you to where you are and to understand where you came from and where you've gotten to. Because if you don't know where you were and you don't know where you are, it's pretty hard to work out where you're going to go. So moment is just a word to get you focused. This is what I'm dealing with at the moment. But moment could be, what is the actual decision I am looking to make right now? Annoy is for anything that is a negative. Things that are annoying us, we're unhappy about them. We want to change them. We consider it a weakness. I really love my current job, but I'm annoyed that the boss won't let me ask him questions, and I'm annoyed that I have to stay back and I don't get paid for it. I love my current job, but I'm annoyed that I have to go out and work in the rain. Good, get a job where you don't have to go outside. So annoy is purely to get you to think about all the downside. It's the negatives. The V is for value. What do you like about it? When we like something, it satisfies a need and we feel good. It encourages us to stay with the thing. It promotes loyalty to a product or a brand or a company or a relationship or whatever. Value is the strengths of what we've got at the moment. Rating is all about thinking about what is the most valuable and what is the least valuable. What is the most annoying? What is the least annoying? So it's about understanding not only, oh, I like these 6 things. Okay, but which ones do you like the most? What's the most important thing? Oh, and I don't like this, and I don't like this, and I don't like this. Oh, well, okay, what's the most annoying thing? So rating, you rate the value, you rate the annoy separately, and then you compare them. And you have the 3 top annoys and the 3 top values. If you in sales can get rid of the 3 top annoys and supply the 3 top valuables to a client, my selling career since I was 24 years of age, 90+% of the time the sale will go through. If I can deliver what they want at the top and I can get rid of what they hate at the top, the bottom 3 or 4 are not as important. It's the top 3. They're deal makers and deal breakers. Once you've made the decision, you then have other considerations. And other considerations can be logical, they can be emotional, and something that George Mavros created, they're logically emotional. So they're not part of the actual decision, but having made the decision, you then have to think about these other considerations. So I've decided I'm going to buy a new car, and I've thought about leasing it as opposed to buying it outright. So one of the considerations that I've got to think about is, what's my credit rating like? Who would I get the loan from? What am I going to do for selling it? Will I be selling it and it won't be worth as much as the end payment on the lease? What sort of a lease will I get? I'm going to buy a car and I've decided to buy it, not lease. Okay. So the car's going to cost me $35,000. Can I take $35,000 out of my cash flow and still be able to enjoy all the things that I want to enjoy. So other considerations come into it after you've worked out what your decision is. I was going to get some personal training a while back. My eldest son is a personal trainer and he teaches people how to be a personal trainer. My daughter was trained by my son and her husband and her run a gym. And my youngest son, thank God, the middle one, he went off to be a builder. That was easy. My youngest son is a personal trainer that was trained by my eldest son, worked for my daughter and her husband, and then set up his own personal training operation on the beach or over at Bondi. So when I decided that I was going to get some personal training, one of my considerations, which was logically emotional, whichever way I go, how am I going to handle this? If I go with one of my children, will the other two be offended? If I go with none of them, etc., etc. Now, that's a fear of upsetting my children. Fear is an emotion, but it's quite logical for a father to think about that. Well, for this one anyway. So there's different categories. Once you've worked all of this out, you then come back to having your strategy. You never, ever have the end decision first and then go through the rest, because all you're going to do is process all the information and then come up with the same answer that you started with. That's why we don't allow the judge to rule before we present the evidence. The judge doesn't say, well, you're guilty. Now, let me see whether you are or not. We go through the process. He listens to all the information. He considers all of that and then makes a decision. When you make a decision, if you take any decision that you've got to make and you think about it, and you think about if I make that decision, what's the upside? What's the downside? What's the most valuable way that this could go forward? Is there any other consideration I've got to make? And then you can adjust. So come back to my analogy of the compass. The original decision might be north. And you give it a little bit of thought and you think, oh, you know what? I'm actually not going to go north. I'm going to go northeast. And if I do this and this, my other decision could be northwest. So it's anywhere from northeast to northwest, you'd be happy. Put that into simple terms for you. My decision is I'm not buying a unit. I'm not buying a townhouse. Okay, so I'm buying a house. Okay, so the house is north. It could be a 3-bedroom place where I can extend onto it. It could be a 4-bedroom place and I don't have to extend onto it. Either way, it's got to be off the main road. It's got to be this, it's got to be that. So you can change it around a bit by just starting to think your strategy through. But it's about going through and asking these questions and processing. For those of you that were here last night, I talked to you about 10 to 7. And for those of you that weren't or can't remember when I told you about this the last time, I say for every 7 questions, you need to have 10 answers. So when we come back to here and we start to think of our strategy, I can think of it, oh, there's a problem with that. That is a question. Can I come up with an answer? If I can come up with an answer, then I can move forward. So the strategy of 10 to 7 also applies with MAVROS, and it applies very well. The fundamental, I remind you, of 10 to 7, if you spend the time preparing before the event, then you won't have to think about it during the event. If you think about what they're going to ask when you're selling, you can think about what you're going to answer. So how does that work when you're buying? Very simple. If I think the car salesman's going to say that, I will answer in this way or this way. If the car salesman says that, I will handle it this way or this way. If the car salesperson says this, I will answer it that way. If the real estate agent says this, I will reply back with this and this. So I practice, I drill, I rehearse how I'm going to handle it. And that's why I haven't bought anything worth more than $500 since I was 24. I just go out to sell my idea to whoever thinks they're selling to me. Touched on this before, it's worth touching on again. There's logical thoughts. When you're making your decision, when you're thinking about the annoys and the values, will it save you money? Will it save you time? Will it take you to where you're headed? Will it, at the end of the day, in the long run or in the medium term, be more beneficial for you? With who you're dealing with and the decision you're making, is it reliable? Is the person reliable? I've got two people applying for a job. This one is very experienced. This one's not so experienced. This one has a lousy attitude. This one has a great attitude. I'll take attitude. I can teach experience. This one doesn't sound as though they're very honest. This one sounds like they're totally honest. I'll take honest. So you think about all the pluses and all the minuses. And these are logical things for you to be thinking about. Emotional thoughts. Well, if I make this decision, how's that going to make me look in my community? What's my parents going to say? What's my wife or my husband or my brothers or my sisters or whoever? That's an emotional thing. If it's right for you, it's right for you. What if I don't buy it? What if I do buy it and it goes wrong? That's talking about risk. That's an emotion. The fear of missing out is about upsetting someone. Are you being too loyal to a brand or a person or the family or your community or your country? There's nothing wrong with being loyal, but are you being too loyal? My wife, God bless her, was far too loyal to a company that didn't understand what a great deal they had. I had to explain to her, loyalty's great, but it goes only so far. It's got to be reciprocated. How does this look? How does it sound? How does it feel? How does it taste? Smells. They're all emotional things. When you're looking at making a decision, there's nothing wrong with having some emotion in it, but you must know when you've moved into emotion. In any conversation, in any decision, in any thoughts, when emotion arrives, logic leaves. When logic comes in, emotion leaves. You can't have a logical discussion in an emotional state. Equally, you can't have an emotionally charged discussion if both of you are being logical. If everybody's being logical and everybody's trying to work it out, then emotion will get under control. But if everybody's yelling and screaming, look at what's going on with all this nonsense over COVID. I don't care whether you're pro or you're against. Everybody starts off with anybody that's not getting double vaxxed, they're a rat bag, they're a loony. Everybody that is getting vaccinated, they're a sheep, they're cowards, they don't understand. So we've just started up here at emotion. Now let's have a logical discussion about it. It's never going to happen. If you start off and you come back to, well, what have we logically got to deal with? The emotion will drift. When you make a decision, if it's based on solid fact, if it's based on firm thoughts, if it's based with logic, it won't be overruled by the wrong emotions. Most of my decisions in business are logically made, emotionally checked. Most of my decisions in my personal life are emotionally made and logically checked. So they will move a little bit, but I understand what I'm doing when I'm doing it. Features and benefits. Features just are. Benefits are the interpretation of the feature by the client. Sometimes that's you. You're making a decision and they've told you about 15 things that are features in the car or the house or the job or whatever. But are any of those of value to you? No? Well, then they're no benefit. I was buying a car once and the guy was telling me that, yes, it's $3,000 more, but it's got leather seats. I said, I go four-wheel driving with a caravan and 2 dogs. What do you think they're going to do to the leather seats? It's of no benefit to me. So I didn't pay $3,000 more for a feature. It was definitely a feature, but it was of no benefit to me. Again, I remind you, Porsche and Volkswagen, both German made, both 2 doors, both rear engines, cars, both of them have quite different benefits to different people because they have significant other features, but those features are the same. So why shouldn't you buy either or? Well, it depends what you want. Features and benefits, part 2. I am the same person. I am the same decision maker. I bought both of those vehicles. I used to race cars when I was younger. I've raced cars, bikes, motorbikes, billy carts, sailing boats, motorboat. Basically, if it had speed in it, I'd race the damn thing and enjoyed it. So when I want to go out for a little bit of a cruise, let's say, I take the red one, which is a 1500cc turbocharged, goes like a rocket, and it's like it's on rails. Any of the guys that are into cars, they're a great car. The one at the back is a Mitsubishi Challenger, and it has a 3-ton towing capacity. I owned that car when I was married to my ex-wife. My ex-wife liked to change cars every 5 years. I like to own a car, and I believe by maintaining it and servicing it, if it does its job, I don't need to buy a new car every 5 years just to prove that I can buy a new car. So when we were divorcing, I said to her, I'm taking the Mitzi. We can haggle everything, we can sort of, we parted as friends, by the way. I said, you want to get rid of it and I want to keep it. So I said, I'd take the Mitzi and we'll balance it out somewhere. Now, the reason I wanted it is I was looking at buying a caravan. And the caravans that I was buying, there was 3 particular models. Each one of them was under 2 tons. That car will tow a 2-ton to 2.5-ton caravan beautifully. That car is now 11 years old. And unless electric cars come in or something else forces me to go off the road, that car will be probably 30 years when I have to replace it. But I'll just keep servicing it. That's my strategy. The features of that car is that it's 4-wheel drive and it can tow a caravan. The features of the red car is it can't tow a caravan. It's not 4-wheel drive, but it goes like a rocket and it's on a set of rails. Again, I just want to touch on dreaming, failing, and succeeding. Most people in this world that don't succeed don't have the courage to fail. If you have the courage to fail, you automatically have the right to succeed. Mother Teresa, this woman, a lot of people said was crazy. She's going to help all of these people and she doesn't even have any money. But she was prepared to fail at that. We all know how many people Mother Teresa has helped. I think it's Greta Stromberg or something like that. Now, I don't necessarily agree with all that she says, but by gosh, that girl has come around and she said, I'm prepared for everybody to bag me. I'm prepared to fail at this. I've got something to say. I'm going to say it. She gets into the United Nations. She gets taken all over the place. And yes, she's got the detractors, but by Jesus, she made some noise about it. And as she got some people thinking, I can tell you this, until that young lady really started to get on the scene, I didn't think about climate control anywhere near as much as I have since her. She had the courage to fail. And by geez, she succeeded. Richard Branson, he has done all sorts of things where he's risked failure. But because he's had the courage to fail, not only has he taken off like a rocket, he built one of the bloody things and he flew into space. Diana. She had the courage to say, I'm not going to follow this. My children, my sons are going to have a different upbringing. I'm going to relate differently to people. And she has been so successful in getting so many people to think about it. The change that's happened in royalty, not just in the UK, but many other places around the world because of that woman. She had the courage to fail. And this guy is a champion to me. I have a dream, an audacious dream. He was prepared to risk his own life to succeed. And look what he achieved, not only for Americans, but around the world. Don't ever, ever, ever forget that. I have a dream. As Mandela says, it's about a dreamer who never gives up. Never, ever stop dreaming today. It is where tomorrow's reality comes from.